Hi, I thought today I would read the kids something, or you. It's actually one for adults too, but if you want to get your kids seated, I'll read Patrick and George today. So this one is a tale of friendship and empathy. Try and do it so you can see the beautiful illustrations. There once was a bear called Patrick. He was a practical bear. That was his best quality, or so he thought. No matter the situation, riddle, hurdle, puzzle or problem, everyone knew that Patrick would solve them. One day, his friend George was feeling troubled. Patrick knew he was just the bear for the job, because what are friends for if they can't mend things that are broken? He's looking a little bit upset there. When Patrick arrived at George's house, his friend seemed a little blue. "I'm so glad you're here," George sighed. "Of course," assured Patrick. "What seems to be the trouble?" George decided to start from the beginning, because that's usually the best place to start when telling a story. "Shall I take you on a journey, Patrick?" asked George, as he pointed to a twisting path tangled with bushes. Patrick had never been here before, but this was George's story after all. Together they started down the winding path. "Sometimes I have trouble getting on top of things," George said wearily, looking up. The wind let out a whooshing sigh that parted the clouds ahead of them. And there it was, a mountain so high it touched the sky. "I want to climb it, but it seems impossible," George said softly. Patrick was also unsure, but together they started to climb. It was tough, it was rough, it became too much, and then suddenly they both came sliding down the mountain. The pair sat in a heap, unhurt but feeling defeated. "Well," said Patrick, "we might just have to walk around it instead." They trudged around the bottom of the mountain until they found themselves at the edge of a deep ravine. George turned to Patrick and said, "I also have a hard time getting across things." Patrick gazed across the ravine. He got so close to the edge he felt the earth crumbling at his feet. He looked around and saw a log nearby, which he thought might make a good bridge. "You grab that end," he said to George. "We can stand it up and tip it across to the other side." With an almighty lift and push, they landed the log perfectly across the ravine. With their arms out like wings, Patrick and George put one foot in front of the other until they reached the other side. Patrick could see that George's confidence was growing. The pair kept moving until they reached the banks of a rushing river. "I also find it hard to keep my head above water," George said. Past the rapids, Patrick could see some flat water which rippled like sheets of satin. Together, Patrick and George used branches and flax to build a raft. Once finished, they threw it in the water and jumped on. They closed their eyes and held on tight as the rapids tossed them here, there, and everywhere, then right over a waterfall. Suddenly, everything felt calm. Still holding hands, they dared to open their eyes and found themselves in quiet waters. Water lilies lay dotted around them, and a gentle current carried them towards the riverbank. "I've never made it this far before," George cried, slightly out of breath. He gave his friend Patrick the biggest hug, and when he pulled away, they were back sitting in his house. Patrick was confused. There was no tall mountain, no huge ravine, no rushing river, just the two of them talking. Patrick hadn't known that George had faced so many obstacles in his life. "Thank you for helping me build a bridge and a raft," said George. "I'm sorry I couldn't help you climb to the top of the mountain though," Patrick sighed. "Maybe I'm not such a great problem solver after all." George smiled. I didn't ask you over here because you're a great problem solver, Patrick. I asked you over because you're a great listener and a wonderful friend. So I hope you enjoyed that little reading. For the parents, there are a lot of notes in the back as well, parents and teachers, just to help talk about empathy a little bit more, to talk about some of the different situations where empathy might be used, and some ways to actually teach empathy to children and how the emotion is helpful. So I hope you enjoyed that. And if you would like a copy for yourself, you can just head over to my website. These are being shipped worldwide, and grab yourself a copy there.